Hi, I'm Tim Richards, author of the Exploring Jazz Piano books. This is the fourth clip I've made relating to volume 2 of the book. In this clip I'm going to give you some tips about how to play and improvise over altered dominant chords. In my opinion, these really are the spice that gives modern jazz its extra bite. Used confidently, they can take your playing up to professional level. An altered chord is a dominant 7th chord with a raised 5th or a flat 5 and a raised 9th or flattened 9th. If we put those together, we get F7, sharp 5, sharp 9. Or we can have flat 9. And we can put the flat 5 in as well, or instead. You can also play it in a different position. Sharp 9, sharp 5. Or with the flat 5 on top, and the flat 9. Flat 9, flat 5. So that's 4 types of chord, all of which come under the bracket of altered. Altered dominance. You'll have to get used to the fact that enharmonic spelling is frequently used in altered chord notation. So for instance, the sharp 9 of F7 can be written as either G sharp or A flat. The sharp 5 can be written as either C sharp or D flat. These alterations normally occur in pairs, the most common being the sharp 5 with sharp 9. Remember that an altered chord should never contain a regular 5th or 9th. In this clip we'll mainly look at ways of playing altered chords in one hand only, as 4-note rootless voicings. Let's look at a 2-5 sequence in the key of B flat. C minor 7, F13, B flat major. This example is completely diatonic, featuring only notes of the B flat major scale. If we want to put an altered chord in the middle, we could make it a sharp 9, sharp 5. Alternatively, a flat 9. In the third example, the flat 9 makes the top note go down in semitones. These foreign notes, which are outside the key of B flat, are the altered notes in the 5 chord. It's like going from 2 to 1 via a slightly different and more colourful route. Please note that in order to play an altered chord in just one hand, you must play 4 notes, 3rd and 7th, plus the altered 5th and 9th. If you leave out one of the altered notes in the above examples, you'll be playing F7 sharp 9, or F7 flat 9, or F7 sharp 5, none of which are truly altered chords, although they can imply them. In the next clip, we'll look at how to voice altered chords in 2 hands. However, first we need to get properly familiar with them in their 4-note rootless form. For instance, you need to know the opposite way of playing them, with the 7th on the bottom. So those are the diatonic shapes. Now if you put an altered chord in the middle, or we could do it another way. The first way had sharp 9 in the middle, the second one had flat 9. Both of them had sharp 5. All of these voicings, including the minor and major ones, have either the 3rd or 7th on the bottom. In fact, I'm only using 2 voicing configurations, 3, 5, 7, 9, and its inversion 7, 9, 3, 5. For 13th chords, the 5th is replaced by the 6th. For altered chords, the 5th and the 9th must be raised and lowered. Practice the shapes I've shown you with a bass line in the left hand. Don't forget to play in time. I strongly recommend memorizing the shapes and transposing them to other keys too. You could use one of the dominant seventh workout tracks we looked at in the last clip as a backing track. When you have a grasp of the shapes, start practicing them in the left hand and add an improvisation in the right with the same workout backing track. 2-5-1 arpeggio workout from volume 1 on page 120 is another track you could use to give you bass and drums backing. If you silence the recorded piano, you can play your altered chords on the 5 in each of the 6 keys. To get a feel for the sound of these altered chords, you might find it helpful to try some simple 2-note motifs that move through the changes. For instance, starting on the 9th and the root of the minor chord. We can do a similar thing if we start on the 5th and the 4th, and this time go up in semitones. I'm demonstrating these with the same rootless voicings we saw earlier, this time played in the left hand. If we combine the altered notes into a single scale, we arrive at the following, descending from the root. Note how I followed the altered scale through so that it resolves onto a suitable note for the B-flat chord on the first beat of the second bar. Let's try it going up from the root. The target note for both of these examples is the 5th of the B-flat chord. It's important not to let altered scales just hang in the air, or your phrases will sound unresolved or even just wrong. Let's see how you might apply altered chords and scales in the context of a blues in B-flat. Track 33 on the CD, Tension and Release Blues No. 2, on page 180, uses a common jazz blues chord sequence in which most of the chords are dominant sevenths, the typical sound of the blues. Including the turnaround, there are 7 places in the blues sequence where chords resolve up a 4th, as in a perfect cadence. If you introduce rootless altered voicings in some of these places, you can resolve them to a 13th voicing for the next chord by moving the shape down a semitone. So in bar 4, B-flat 7 altered goes down a semitone and becomes E-flat 13. In bar 8, G7 altered goes down a semitone and becomes C13. So this device is really effective. I've used it all along the whole blues. Let's do it in time now with a backing track from track 33 as a backing. If you're going to play a 1-6-2-5 turnaround, it's not so easy to play altered scales as you only have 2 beats on each chord. I'd recommend the B-flat blues scale or the minor pentatonic over the last 2 bars. This is an example of horizontal improvisation. Because the blues scale includes many notes outside the B-flat major key, they happen to correspond with many of the notes in the altered chords. For instance, D-flat is the sharp 5 of the F7 chord and the sharp 9 of the B-flat 7 chord. E-flat is the sharp 5 of the G7 and the sharp 9 of the C7. A-flat is the flat 9 of the G7 and the sharp 9 of F7. That's one reason the blues scale sounds so cool, but use it in moderation. I'll now give you a tip to help you get altered scales under your fingers. The top part of the scale is the same as a whole tone scale on the root of the dominant chord, F in this case. The bottom part of the scale is the same as a diminished scale, the one you would use for F7. If you're not sure how to find the notes of a diminished scale, see the previous clip number 3 on diminished chords and scales. Because it combines these two scales, the altered scale is sometimes called a diminished whole tone scale. You can simplify how you conceive of the altered scale by just using the top or bottom half by itself. Here's a couple of examples using the whole tone part only. Here's another one. Another trick is to think of the major pentatonic scale based on the flat 5 of the dominant chord. Let's try a different key for a change. In D major, the 5 chord is A7. If you play an A7 altered chord, you can play over it using E flat major pentatonic in the right hand. Here's another way of doing it, in which I go to the altered chord halfway through the bar. This works because the E flat major pentatonic contains all the altered notes for A7. Sharp 5 and flat 5, the 7th, and then flat 9 and sharp 9. The music you heard right at the start of this clip is my tune 7th Heaven, track 37 on the CD, page 202. It's in the key of D major and features A7 altered chords alternating with B flat major 7 and resolving to D major every 8 bars in head and solo. I'm going to use the backing track from the solo section to play along with bass and drums only in order to demonstrate a few altered phrases over the A7 chords. You can use this track with the piano silence to explore your own ideas over the A7 altered chords with bass and drums backing. Try out some of the ideas we explored earlier, transposing them from F to A7. I hope you found this clip on altered scales and chords useful. In the next clip, I'll show you how to play them as two-handed voicings, an essential comping style. We'll also look at a killer topic in modern jazz harmony, polychords, otherwise known as upper structure voicings.